Hey there, welcome to my YouTube channel. I'm Michelle from Michelle V Park Design. I'm so glad you could join me in my craft room. Today we're going to make a sweet little Christmas card featuring an adorable little penguin from Gina K Designs. We're going to start with a little stamping, a little bit of hand coloring with some alcohol markers, some ink blending, and of course a little die cutting. You're also going to find out it's okay to do things 2 times. So please stick around. Join me down at that craft table. Let's get this project started. Today we'll be using my Gina K Designs Festive Penguin stamp set and coordinating dies. There's some really cute images in this set. I'll also be using Gina's inks as well. I'm going to start with Sea Glass, Turquoise Sea, Wild Wisteria, and In the Navy. And I'm on the fence about In the Navy, but we'll see what happens. To assist me with my die cutting, I use a tried and true technique that requires my Misti. First, I place the stamp on the door of my Misti, just like normal. Then I stamp the image onto a scrap piece of paper that is already taped down to the Misti mat. Next, I take a piece of colored cardstock that has already been die cut with the shape of my penguin. I center it, more or less, and then place it over top of my penguin image. I line up that negative space on the image so I end up with a nice amount of offset or white margin all the way around the stamped penguin. When I'm sure the margin is as even all the way around as I can manage, I can tape everything down so it's nice and secure. Off camera, I cut a couple of die-cut penguins from white 100-pound cardstock. Now I can take that penguin shape and fit it right into that template. But first, I'll put a tiny bit of tape runner on the backside to hold it temporarily while I'm stamping. This way, he doesn't lift when I stamp. I fit him into that negative space, tap down gently to make sure he is secured. Now that my setup is completed, I'm now going to stamp the image with some Simon Says Stamp Intense Black Ink. This ink is alcohol marker friendly. I'll ink up thoroughly, but in hindsight, I think my pad needs a little more ink. Anyway, I'm not going to worry about getting the perfect impression this time around because thanks to my template and my Misti, I'll be able to restamp later after I've colored my image. I'll press the stamp with my fingertips and the heel of my hand to get good transfer. After stamping the cardstock, I can see a beautiful, even white margin all the way around my penguin image. I'll be using my alcohol markers to color my image. I'm not an expert colorist, but I do like how easy these markers are to use. Plus, they allow me to get more use for my outline stamps. I use the Ohuhu Markers brand, which is a great starter brand for a beginner like me. I've selected 4 colors today, 3 shades of a yellow-green tone for the hat and scarf, and an orangey shade for the penguin's feet. Although the green isn't a traditional green color, I thought it would be a fun twist. I also like to scribble the colors on a piece of paper, just for reference. I'll start with the penguin's feet. An important thing to keep in mind about alcohol markers is that they bleed beyond where you apply the marker to the paper. To prevent coloring outside the lines, I use this characteristic to my advantage. Instead of coloring right up to the outline, I stop just shy of the line, allowing the ink to naturally bleed towards the outline without going beyond it. This requires a little bit of practice, but once you've figured out where to stop and start, it is magic. Personally, I prefer the brush side of the marker because the tip of the brush works well for getting into small places, like these feet. I use very small flicking motions or teeny tiny dots with very little pressure when coloring in small spaces. Next up, the penguin's hat. I'll start with the lightest yellow-green color. I'm not going to do anything fancy either. I'm just applying a base color to the entire hat. The hat is a little bigger than the feet, so I can use longer strokes to color. I'm keeping it super simple, coloring just like when I was in kindergarten, while staying carefully within those lines. After applying the all-over color in the lightest shade, I'll apply the next darkest color for some subtle shading. I'll add a simple line of the darker color using short flicking strokes on the hat flaps next to his face and then across the hat band nearest to his forehead. Lastly, I'll take that darkest marker color and with the very tip of my brush, carefully add some color to that teeny tiny stripe on his hat. I decided that I wanted the hat to have more intense color, so I ended up coloring the hat twice, 2 coats for the base color and 2 coats for the shading. For basic coloring, there's no right or wrong answer, and small images are very forgiving when it comes to alcohol marker coloring. So just have some fun. Now that my penguin is colored, I want to intensify the black lines and completely color his wings and body with black ink. First, I'll clean the ink we used earlier off the stamp with my microfiber cloth. Then I'll apply some Ranger Archival ink. I love how this ink doesn't bleed when you stamp multiple times, which is what I'll have to do with this image to make sure the black parts of the penguin are evenly and thoroughly colored. Since I colored him right in the Misti, he is still perfectly positioned to be stamped again. This is the beauty of using the template and the Misti. Sorry for the table shakes, folks. Apparently, I have some work to do in my recording space. Anyway, as you see, I did stamp the image several times until I was completely happy with the intensity of the black on my penguin body. One thing to note about archival ink is that it's not a dye ink and it sits right on top of the paper, so it does take some time to dry. In total, I believe I stamped him about 3 times to get the coverage I wanted. But look, he is beautifully colored now. Now I need to get the die cut out of the template. I use my Tim Holtz picking tool to gently pry up my penguin. Remember, I put a little tape runner on the backside to keep him in the template, so I'll have to be very careful not to bend my die cut as I pry him up. Next up on the menu is some ink blending. I'm going to abbreviate this entire process with big edits and super fast video because the table was shaking like crazy and I really didn't want you guys to get seasick watching it. So first off, I'm going to put a wee bit of tape runner on the back side of my cardstock to hold it in place while I'm blending. Then I'll ink that brush up with sea glass ink, pulled it off the table because it was shaking. Anyway, put that color on the brush and starting from the base of the cardstock, I swirl the color in nice circular motions, laying down some ink. Sea glass is a really light shade and it takes a lot of layers to build up any intensity of color, but I promise there is some color on that cardstock. Next color up is Turquoise Sea. I'll bring the color in from the side of the cardstock, swirling gently with a light hand as this is a super intense color. I'll also make sure I swirl in some turquoise sea over top of the sea glass to soften the transition point. You can even go back in with a little more sea glass as well. Now we're on to the third color, which is our wild wisteria. Same idea as before. Swirl in from the side lightly and then softening the transition point between the wild wisteria and the turquoise sea. I ended up using in the navy after all. I blended the dark ink from the top and the sides just into the other colors. I'm glad I decided to do this as it really brings a lot of depth to the party. Also, don't be afraid to go back and add more ink to your project to deepen your blending. Using many light layers is definitely the best way to go. As you can see, I ended up using another layer for all of my colors. The beauty of ink blending is that you can keep playing until you're happy with your result. And here is my completed ink blended panel. It looks very wintry. I'm also going to be using my Gina K stitched rectangle from her Master Layouts 14 set to trim my panel. I'll use the die opening to determine the best placement, allowing me to visualize which parts of my ink blending will appear on the cut panel. Additionally, to provide a point of reference, I'll place my little penguin in the opening just to see how he'll look on the finished project. Afterward, I'll run everything through the die cut machine. Well, except for the penguin. I did some things off camera to speed the video up. Here are all my parts and pieces assembled on my work surface. Here's the wintry ink blended background. For the base of our card, an A2 note card in white, which is 5.5 by 4.25. It's top folding, folded in the landscape orientation. Here's the sweet penguin, and off camera I stamped and die cut this happy Christmas sentiment. I have additional die cuts to layer under these for additional dimension. I also have some sweet die cut snowflakes, including a few glittery ones to fill up our wintry sky. Plus, these tiny little balls that will decorate the small string of lights or ornaments that the penguin is holding. All right, so next up, stacking of the die cuts. Pretty simple. Add a little glue to the back side, put one on top of the other. I'm starting with the penguin. Run your fingers around, pressing down firmly as you go. Then off to the sentiment. Do the same thing, pressing down, running your fingers around the edges, and then I do like to burnish the back sides as well. All right, we're on the home stretch now. There are our two stacked die cuts. We'll get the note card out of the way and bring the panel down. You'll see that it still has some tape runner. We'll just stick that down to our work surface and proceed to laying out our card. As you know, I like to dry fit all my pieces till I get my layout in an eye-pleasing fashion. I'm kind of a sentiment goes on the right-hand side kind of gal. We'll arrange those snowflakes so that they look pretty up in that wintry sky. And we'll just futz around with it until we're happy with the layout. I'm really pleased with the layout of the snowflakes. Off camera, I glued down the tiny little balls onto that ornament string. Now we're ready to finish our card project. So with the wave of my magic embellishment wand, my card panel is centered on that note card. I'm really pleased with how my card project turned out, and I'd love to hear your comments down below. Thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate you spending your time here with me in my craft room. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more of my handmade card creations and design tips, hit that subscribe button so you'll be notified the next time I post. It really does mean the world to me to have you as part of my creative community. So until next time, happy crafting.